Hello. As some of you may know by now, I am a huge fan of old classic movies, TV shows, cartoons, etc. One of the things I find most interesting about them is that they're basically like a time capsule of old jokes, slang terms, and other references that were pretty universal at the time, but by now have been largely lost to obscurity. When you watch enough of this vintage media, you start to pick up on common themes and subtle threads that got reused over and over again. And if you pull on those threads, you start to reveal odd little tidbits of history and culture that you might never have expected. So with that in mind, today we're going to talk about cheap whiskey and big cats.
Otherwise known as the Tiger King.
No. Sorry, that is a whole different kind of show. So, how am I making this weird leap between whiskey and cats? Well, it started with the recurring appearance of a fake whiskey brand called Old Panther. It's appeared in Looney Tunes, Tex Avery cartoons, even multiple episodes of The Three Stooges, among others. It always seems to be sort of an in-joke, but obviously it was funny enough in the 1940s and 50s that writers, directors, and animators kept using it over and over again. But what exactly was the joke? First off, there doesn't seem to have ever been a whiskey brand in America called Old Panther until about 12 or 15 years ago. Nowadays, you can find faux vintage signs, bottles, and other products advertising Panther-themed whiskey that are made to look old, but are not. They're just novelty products for the very niche audience of classic film buffs who remember seeing Old Panther in the background of old movies and such. The real joke is that the name Old Panther is actually a more family-friendly version of an archaic nickname for whiskey or moonshine that was produced in illegal, or at least unregulated, stills in the Appalachian Mountains and the Deep South in the 18th and 19th centuries.
It's where I make my liquor, free from government interference. Here, try a swig. What's in this? I have no idea. I could really use some government interference.
You've probably heard the terms rot gut, swill, or hooch before, and maybe a few others. But one you might not be as familiar with is panther piss. I think that was a pissed panther. Different kind of pissed panther. But anyway, yes, cheap homemade whiskey was sometimes referred to as panther piss. It was unpredictable, highly variable in terms of taste and quality, not to mention alcoholic content, could occasionally be lethal.
It passed the first test. I didn't go blind.
And apparently sometimes smelled pretty bad. Apparently, bad panther piss, if there is even such a thing as good panther piss, often had a very strong smell not unlike ammonia. If there are any cat fanciers out there, then you know that feline urine smells pretty bad, and that's because of the high ammonia content. So when filmmakers needed a funny, fake liquor bottle as a background gag, they started calling it Old Panther. And this is actually a fairly nuanced joke if you think about it. 1. Panther piss would have been too vulgar to display in kids' cartoons and Three Stooges shorts, even in those days. 2. Adults who were watching in the 1940s would immediately make the connection from Old Panther to panther piss and maybe get a quick chuckle out of the implied obscenity. And 3, calling it old makes it sound classy and highbrow, but the panther part of the name immediately clues you in that this is cheap, crappy booze of the absolute lowest quality. But why panther piss specifically and not just cat piss? Well, there are no explicitly documented sources that I can find, but if we take a closer look at geography and zoology, I think we can start to piece it together. Okay, first off, what even is a panther? Seems like a simple question, but that answer is actually going to vary wildly depending on where you live. It seems like the image most people have in their head is of a black panther.
The whole black nation has to be put together as a black army.
I mean, them too, but let's stick with the cats.
Oh, I'm a jazz daddy from way back with the skit scat skiddly boom de boom and the ding dong daddy. Is that jazz?
No, not that kind of cat. feline cats. First off, yes, black or melanistic panthers do exist. However, they are individual specimens of leopards in Africa and Asia and jaguars in Central and South America that have an excess of melanin in their skins and coats, which makes them mostly or entirely black all over, instead of brown or spotted. However, there has never been a recorded instance of a black panther in the wild in the United States. The closest sightings would have been in Mexico or Central America. The United States does have a native species of big cat, the North American cougar, but they're known by a number of different names depending on the regional dialect. Cougar is probably the most widespread term, but where I come from, we call them mountain lions, and in other regions, they might call them pumas or, yes, even panthers, especially in the American Southeast. There's actually a distinct subpopulation of the cougar family known as the Florida panther that even has an NHL team named after them. On a weird side note, the Florida Panthers mascot, at least one of them anyway, is a rat, but that's a story for another day. The America's other big cat species, the jaguars, which are a little smaller and known for their vibrant spots, used to live in the southwestern United States and are still very rarely spotted in Arizona, but now they mostly only live in Mexico, Central America, and South America. And while jaguars are known to sometimes be melanistic and have all black coats and therefore be thought of as black panthers, as I said, there has never been a recorded instance of a North American cougar being all black. So it's a muddled taxonomic mess, but just remember that black panthers are not a distinct species. Panther is just another name for cougar, and black panthers are just dark-furred jaguars, or leopards, in Africa and Asia. So, to finally tie all this into cheap bootleg whiskey. Big cats, much like their smaller domesticated counterparts, spray their territory with urine to market. Now remember, big predatory cats are referred to as panthers in the Appalachians and the Deep South. Rural settlers of these areas in the 18th and 19th centuries likely would have spent a lot of time outdoors hunting and such, and as a survival tactic, they would have learned very quickly to recognize the smell of big cat urine, aka panther piss, to let them know that they've entered into the territory of a large and dangerous predator. So when they got home and opened up a bottle of cheap booze and got hit with that ammonia smell that poorly manufactured alcohol can get, is that whiskey or panther piss? And the legend lives on. Well, that was fun. It's good to be back. Got some new editing tools to play with and an incredibly warm new studio.
Well, I need a window seat because this flower is wilting.
So hopefully it won't be another 2 years before my next unnecessarily convoluted tidbits of utterly useless knowledge. If you like this video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. If you didn't like this video, pour yourself a glass of panther piss on the rocks.
Make that two.
And watch it again. Might help.